But then, something unexpected happened. Something that changed everything. Tyson's fists moved like lightning, each punch carrying decades of experience, raw power, and the violent precision that made him one of the most feared boxers in history. Cena, despite his size and strength, felt the impact in ways he had never experienced before. This wasn't the scripted world of WWE where he could anticipate an opponent's next move. This was real, and every second in the ring with Tyson felt like standing in front of a wrecking ball. Yet, Cena had something that couldn't be trained or measured: an unshakable will to fight, to endure, to find a way forward no matter the cost. The crowd roared as Tyson pressed forward, his eyes locked on Cena like a predator sizing up his prey. Every time Cena tried to create distance, Tyson slipped through, weaving past his defenses with the skill of a seasoned fighter. A sharp left hook landed clean, snapping Cena's head to the side. For a split second, it seemed like the fight could end right there. But to everyone's surprise, Cena didn't fall. He staggered, shook off the blow, and came forward with a determined glare. The years of training, the punishment he had taken throughout his career, it had all led him to this moment. He clenched his fists and threw a powerful right hand, catching Tyson just enough to make him step back. It wasn't the most technical strike, but it sent a message: he wasn't going down that easily. Meanwhile, outside the ring, the world watched in shock. The sports world had been divided leading up to this fight. Some believed Tyson would destroy Cena in minutes, while others thought the wrestling icon had the conditioning and size to wear Tyson down. But now, as the fight unfolded, a new question emerged. Could Cena actually survive this? And if so, could he find a way to win? Tyson's camp had prepared for a short, explosive fight, but as the minutes passed, an unsettling realization crept in: Cena wasn't fading the way most opponents did. Back in his corner, Tyson's team urged him to stay patient, to keep breaking Cena down. "Don't let him get comfortable," his coach warned. Tyson nodded, but deep down, something about this fight felt different. He had faced tough opponents before, men who refused to go down, but Cena's resilience wasn't just physical. It was psychological. He was absorbing punishment, pushing forward, and showing no fear. That kind of mentality could be dangerous, even for a fighter as seasoned as Tyson. Cena's team, on the other hand, had a different concern. They knew he had heart, that much was obvious, but heart alone wouldn't be enough. He needed a strategy. Trying to outbox Tyson was a losing game, and brute strength wouldn't be enough to overwhelm a man who had spent his entire life fighting against the best. They called for him to clinch more, to use his size to wear Tyson down, to make this an ugly, grinding fight instead of a technical one. As the next round began, Cena adjusted. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was starting to adapt. Instead of trading shots in open space, he forced Tyson into clinches, leaning his weight on him, making every exchange a battle of endurance. Tyson, though still dangerous, started to feel the difference. Cena wasn't trying to box with him, he was turning this into a fight unlike anything Tyson had prepared for. The wrestling background that many had dismissed as irrelevant suddenly became his biggest asset. But just as the tide seemed to shift, Tyson reminded the world why he was feared. In the blink of an eye, he slipped out of a clinch and unleashed a devastating uppercut that sent shockwaves through the arena. Cena's head snapped back, his legs wobbled, and for the first time, doubt crept in. The crowd gasped, sensing that this might be the moment the fight ended. Tyson, sensing blood, moved in for the finish. Yet, against all odds, Cena didn't fall. He stumbled, grabbed onto Tyson to stay upright, and managed to clinch again, buying himself just a few precious seconds. His vision blurred, his head throbbed, but he wasn't done yet. This wasn't just about winning or losing anymore, this was about proving something, not just to the world, but to himself. In the stands, analysts and commentators couldn't believe what they were witnessing. This was supposed to be a spectacle, an entertaining but predictable fight. Instead, it had become something far more intense, an unpredictable war between two men who refused to break. No one had expected Cena to last this long. No one had expected Tyson to be forced into a battle of endurance. And yet, here they were, locked in a fight that had taken on a life of its own. The tension in the arena reached a boiling point as the fighters moved into the next exchange. Both men were battered, breathing heavily, and yet, neither had any intention of backing down. It was a test of will, a fight that had transcended the hype and become something much more personal. And as they circled each other once more, it became clear this was far from over. Something was about to happen, something no one could have predicted. Tyson paced forward again, his breathing steady despite the relentless exchanges. He had fought some of the toughest men in history, but this was different. Cena wasn't the fastest, nor the most technical, but he refused to break. There was something frustrating, almost eerie, about the way he kept absorbing Tyson's best shots and coming forward. It was the same look Tyson had seen in himself during his early days, a man willing to go through fire, no matter how much it burned. Cena's mind raced, his ears ringing from the last uppercut. Every instinct screamed at him to back down, to let his body collapse under the weight of exhaustion and pain. But he fought against it. This wasn't just a fight, this was about proving he belonged here, that his reputation as an unshakable force in WWE wasn't just for show. He had taken on giants, he had been thrown through tables, endured brutal slams, and come back from it all. But now, he was against a man whose punches felt like they could shatter bone. Tyson feinted left and launched another right hook, expecting Cena to react the same way he had before. But this time, Cena ducked, slipping under the punch at the last second and wrapping his arms around Tyson's torso. A wrestling instinct, drilled into him for years, took over. In one explosive motion, he lifted Tyson and drove him backward into the ropes. It wasn't a clean takedown, it wasn't even legal in a traditional boxing match, but for a split second, the world seemed to stop. The crowd erupted in a mix of shock and disbelief. This wasn't just an ordinary fight anymore. It had turned into something unpredictable, something neither man had fully prepared for. Tyson pulled himself off the ropes, shaking his head in frustration. He wasn't used to being manhandled. Cena's tactics weren't pretty, but they were working. The boxing legend was now facing an opponent who refused to play by the usual rules. Tyson adjusted his gloves, rolling his shoulders as he reset. If Cena wanted to make this a brawl, so be it. He closed the distance again, hammering away at Cena's midsection with brutal body shots. Each punch thudded into his ribs, forcing Cena to grunt in pain. Tyson had seen opponents try to outlast him before, but no one could take that level of punishment forever. He just had to keep breaking him down, inch by inch. But then, something changed. Cena, instead of retreating, started pushing forward again. He wasn't just absorbing the damage, he was walking through it. Tyson threw another left hook, and this time, Cena ducked under it and countered with a sharp uppercut of his own. It wasn't as crisp as a professional boxer's punch, but it was strong enough to make Tyson take a step back. The energy in the arena shifted. Cena wasn't just surviving anymore, he was fighting back in a way no one expected. The tension in the crowd thickened as the fight entered dangerous territory. Cena's strength and durability were forcing Tyson to work harder than he had in years. He had trained for an explosive finish, but this fight had stretched far beyond that. His muscles burned, his arms felt heavier, and for the first time, a flicker of doubt crept into his mind. Could Cena actually wear him down? As if sensing the shift, Cena pressed forward, clinching Tyson again and driving him toward the corner. He was using every ounce of his strength, every bit of his wrestling background to control the pace. Tyson fought back with short, sharp punches inside the clinch, but the moment he created space, Cena smothered him again. It was ugly, exhausting, and unlike anything Tyson had faced before. And then, something happened that no one saw coming. As Tyson tried to push Cena away, his footing slipped for just a fraction of a second. It was nothing major, just a slight misstep, but in the chaos of the fight, it was enough. Cena capitalized instantly, landing a powerful overhand right that connected clean. Tyson's head snapped back, and for the first time in the fight, he stumbled. The noise in the arena exploded. For a moment, the world seemed frozen. Tyson, the man who had built his career on knocking others out, was suddenly the one trying to regain his balance. He steadied himself, his eyes flashing with frustration and something else, something rare. Shock. Cena had just done what many thought was impossible. He had made Tyson stumble. The look on Tyson's face changed. The fight was no longer about proving dominance. It was about survival. He had come into this match expecting to dismantle Cena with precision and power. But now, he realized he was in a war. And the question that no one had dared to ask was now impossible to ignore: could Tyson actually lose? The seconds ticked by as both men locked eyes, their bodies battered, their breath ragged. The next move would decide everything. And as they squared up once again, the world held its breath, waiting to see who would make the next mistake, who would find the strength to end it. Tyson wiped the sweat from his brow, his breathing heavy, his muscles aching in ways he hadn't felt in years. He had underestimated Cena, that much was clear. This wasn't just another fight. This was something different, something that had pushed him into uncharted territory. Across from him, Cena stood tall, his own body battered, but his determination unwavering. The crowd was on its feet, the air electric with anticipation. This was the moment. One of them would fall. Tyson exhaled sharply and moved forward again, his instincts screaming for one final push. He had spent his life finishing fights with his fists, overwhelming his opponents before they could react. He needed to do it now. Cena braced himself, his hands up, ready for the storm. Tyson feinted left and threw a right hook with all the power he had left. It connected clean. Cena's head snapped to the side, sweat flying off his face as his legs wobbled. For a split second, the entire arena held its breath. But then, something incredible happened. Cena didn't go down. He staggered but stayed on his feet, shaking off the impact with sheer willpower. Tyson's eyes widened in disbelief. He had knocked out world champions with that punch, ended careers with that very same blow. Yet here Cena stood, refusing to fall. The realization hit Tyson like a second punch: he was fighting someone who wouldn't quit, someone who thrived in the depths of exhaustion and pain. Cena took a deep breath and roared as he charged forward, launching a desperate, last-ditch assault. He ducked another incoming punch and wrapped his arms around Tyson, using his wrestling background to lift him off the ground for a brief moment before slamming him backward into the ropes. The move sent shockwaves through Tyson's body, knocking the wind out of him. The crowd exploded, half in awe, half in disbelief. Cena wasn't boxing anymore. He was fighting his fight. Tyson stumbled, his balance momentarily thrown off, but his warrior instincts kicked in. He steadied himself, gritting his teeth as he let loose a rapid-fire combination to Cena's ribs. The punches were brutal, each one digging deep, but Cena held on, refusing to give an inch. It was a clash of sheer power and unbreakable endurance, two unstoppable forces meeting head-on. Both men were running on empty, their bodies screaming in protest, yet neither backed down. The final seconds of the round ticked away, and the bell rang, signaling the end of the fight. But for a moment, neither man moved. They stood there, chest to chest, locked in an unspoken battle of wills. Then, slowly, they stepped back, breathing heavily, acknowledging the war they had just endured. The judge's decision was coming, but in that moment, it didn't matter. Tyson had walked in expecting dominance. Cena had stepped in with something to prove. And by the time the fight ended, both had found something unexpected: mutual respect. As the announcer took the microphone, the world leaned in, waiting for the verdict. And then, just before the final decision was read, Tyson did something no one expected. He turned to Cena, extended his hand, and gave a nod. Not of defeat, not of surrender, but of recognition. Cena, blooded but unbowed, returned the gesture, gripping Tyson's hand with the same unbreakable spirit that had carried him through the fight. The moment was bigger than the decision. Bigger than the fight itself. It was about two men from two different worlds standing together after giving everything they had. And as the crowd roared, knowing they had witnessed something legendary, Tyson and Cena knew one thing for sure: no matter who won, they had both earned their place in history. The world of combat sports had seen its fair share of dream matchups, fights that existed only in fantasy, whispered about in gyms and online forums. But this was different. This was a collision of two legends from completely different worlds, two titans whose paths were never meant to cross. On one side, Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, a force of nature who redefined heavyweight boxing with his explosive power and relentless aggression. On the other, John Cena, the face of WWE, a man who dominated professional wrestling for over a decade, known for his strength, charisma, and ability to overcome impossible odds. What had started as mere speculation had now become reality. A battle unlike any other was about to take place, and the world was watching. Nobody could have predicted how this would all unfold. The idea alone seemed impossible. Tyson, a man who spent his life fighting under the strict rules of boxing, and Cena, a larger-than-life superstar accustomed to the theatrical yet physically demanding world of wrestling, stepping into the same ring? It defied all logic, yet here they were, preparing to make history. The internet exploded the moment the fight was announced. Fans debated endlessly who had the edge. Could Cena, with his raw power and athleticism, withstand the raw ferocity of Tyson? Or would the former boxing champion's precision and knockout ability prove too much? One thing was certain: this was more than just a fight. It was a clash of eras, of disciplines, of two men who had spent their lives at the top of their respective worlds. The journey to this moment had been anything but simple. Tyson, though years removed from his prime, had never truly left the fight game. Even in his 50s, he remained a spectacle, his training videos still going viral, showcasing glimpses of the monster he once was. His speed, his power, they hadn't faded entirely. The hunger was still there, buried beneath the years, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Cena, on the other hand, had built his legacy in a different arena. While wrestling wasn't a real fight in the traditional sense, Cena was no stranger to pain, no stranger to grueling training sessions that pushed his body to its absolute limits. He had spent years conditioning himself to take punishment, to endure, to rise back up when others would crumble. And now, he was about to face his greatest challenge yet. The negotiations alone were a battle. How do you set the rules for a fight like this? Traditional boxing? No chance. Cena had never been in a real sanctioned boxing match before, and throwing him against a legend like Tyson in that format would have been madness. Wrestling? That wouldn't work either. Tyson wasn't a trained professional wrestler, and fans wanted a legitimate fight, not a scripted performance. In the end, a compromise was reached. A hybrid fight, something that had never been done before. No wrestling theatrics, no scripted moves. Just two men standing in front of each other, fighting until one of them could no longer continue. Training camps were intense, filled with brutal sparring sessions and endless drills. Tyson's camp focused on sharpening his fundamentals, ensuring that his knockout power remained intact. His age was a factor, but his experience, his ability to read an opponent, to slip punches and find openings, those were weapons that never dulled. Cena, on the other hand, had to learn an entirely new skill set. The conditioning, the movement, the striking, it was all different from what he was used to. His team knew he couldn't outbox Tyson, so they focused on his strengths, his power, his durability, his ability to keep pushing forward. Fight night arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. The arena was packed, the tension palpable. Celebrities, fighters, wrestlers, everyone had shown up to witness history. The entrances were nothing short of legendary. Tyson, walking with that familiar cold stare, fists clenched, looking like a man ready to destroy anything in his path. Cena, stepping into unfamiliar territory, but with the same unwavering confidence that had made him a superstar. They met in the center of the ring, the crowd on their feet, the energy unlike anything seen before. As the bell rang, the world held its breath. Tyson came forward immediately, his head movement sharp, his fists like sledgehammers as he closed the distance. Cena, much larger, tried to use his size to his advantage, keeping Tyson at bay, trying to avoid the inevitable storm. The first punches were thrown, the sound of leather against skin echoing through the arena. It was happening. The impossible fight was real, and neither man was backing down.